Hello, my name is Greg Madison, and this is The Living Process. In this episode, I'm speaking with Donata Schoeller, and this is part two of episode 13. The first part was on embodied critical thinking, and this part two, is more about the question of subjectivity and common misunderstanding of focusing. And we touch also briefly upon the question of inside outside and whether there is such a thing as an inside or outside. And we just mark that as a larger topic for a coming episode. So just to remind you that these conversations with Donata are very topic based. So this is the second and third conversation that we've had together, and they constitute episode 13 of The Living Process. For those of you who don't know much about Donata, if there are any of you out there, Donata Schoeller is a philosopher. She has associations with different universities and is also involved in a project called Embodied Critical Thinking. She directs that project, and it spans across a number of different universities. And the topic of our first part one episode really kind of deals with some of the obstacles, perhaps you could say, that that project will need to deal with in the culture of philosophy. I have put Donata's website address in the show notes and encourage you to have a look at her site so that you can see some of her publications that are there and also information on upcoming courses that she's offering. So here we are, part two of episode 13 with Donata Schoeller. So welcome back, Donata.
Thank you.
And very nice to be with you again. And today we wanted to talk, well, I'll let you correct me, but my understanding is that we wanted to talk a little bit about when you bring your attention inside of yourself, is what you find some kind of a subjectivity or a subject in some way, or do you find, as Gendlin suggests, some kind of interaction with the world? What is it that we're doing when we're focusing?
Yeah. Yes, well, it's really a major and interesting question.
Yeah.
And I think what we're touching with this question is also somehow, there's some kind of shifting going on with, we have some kind of basic background assumptions or pictures or schemas with which we understand, and I have the feeling that in the last 30, 40, 50 years, some part of these schemas also shift, like when there was in one of this schema shifting huge, this classical example where we thought we are in the middle of the world, and it all makes sense, with this schema, it all makes sense. The stars are around us, the sun is somewhere here, with the schema, it all makes sense. And then this incredible schema shift, we are somewhere at the edge of a galaxy with all the other galaxies and so on. It's just incredible, what this schema shift meant for the people who realized that in the 16th and so it was really amazing.
Yeah.
And I think now is also an interesting schema shift, and it concerns subjectivity, and I think very long we had this schema of, and that's captured in this word subject. Yeah, we are, and it's connected with autonomous subjects. I am myself and I'm autonomous and you are yourself, and we are very evidently separated from one another. We are separated from the world, And so looking into ourselves is something that only concerns ourselves. And objectivity is something we can all see together.
Yeah.
And that was also the basic thing, the basic assumption for building up a rigorous scientific discipline, where it really doesn't matter who looks, from where you look, who is looking, we have this joint knowledge. Yeah. And that was incredibly important and an incredibly important skill, cultural skill. And Greg Madison even calls it a first-person skill to be able, to do this. And it's immensely successful. So now something is happening in the last 40 and 50, and you interrupt me if I now preach too long. Yes, but maybe I can just continue this, that more and more we also biologically and psychologically, we are understood in terms of interaction. And Gendlin's process model very early on, he was really one of the pioneers, said we need basic concepts that start with interaction, that really start with interaction. And then, of course, everything falls apart, because where are the identities? Where are the building blocks? And this amazing, provocation, well, they emerge by interaction. By interaction, we are who we are through the interactions that, that are constituting our bodies to the cellular level, with air, nutrition, and all the social relations and all the time. We are who we are as a result of interactions. Yeah. And then, of course, looking inside is something utterly different. Then looking inside is, attending to this highly complex manifestation of interaction that connects me to the whole world, to the whole history of mankind, to my culture, and so on. And we kind of, and it's really, I think, very exciting, because we're kind of groping for words to spell this out, that each person is a unique voice. And I think that's also Gendlin who spells it out so beautifully, contributing an understanding of the whole from this specific manifestation of the whole interacting. It's a totally different picture.
Let me say that last bit back to you, because I think it captures some of the tension that seems apparent between, on the one hand, valuing the individual, and on the other hand, saying everything is interaction.
Yes.
So let me just say it back to you, that when we bring our attention inside, we don't find a self-enclosed subjectivity. We find this myriad of interactions in the world. It's our specific responding process of living that is both unique and not separate.
Yes, yes, yes. So, and Gendlin spells it out so beautifully concrete that, if we sense inside, and, we might now, he says, at the beginning, one might just feel a pressure, and then if one attends to this pressure, it opens up to a very specific, very entangled situation in the workplace, connected with, implications for the family, connected with value systems and understandings, connected maybe with a concern for a bigger task or responsibility, connected with, problems I need to tackle that come from the past, connected with a parents and a historical situation. You can really, it's very precise. It's not just, wow, very holistic. It's very precise. And the same thing is the body. I mean, what we feel as body is we feel, what it is like to be a body is, the body is a product of a joint evolution in which everything played a role. Everything played a role. And with breathing, we breathe what other living species constantly produce, from plants to algae. We constantly take this into the most inner little fibers of ourselves, and we give back. So this is just hard scientific facts, so to say, and what we eat is, yeah. So in that sense, I think that the word subjectivity carries on such a traditional load.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we cannot discard it, but it could take on a different meaning. But now I want to come back to the tension that you were pinpointing to, that still we are individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is, and that is, again, needing to grope for words, how to understand individuality, not on the basis of separateness, but on the specific manifestation that you are, and just you are, and no one else.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
It's very difficult. Even as I listen to you, I can feel myself going back and forth between two models.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can imagine myself into the Gendlin world where everything is interaction and there is no gap, there is no separateness. But that doesn't mean some kind of holistic glob. It means this kind of specificity you were talking about, where there is still an individual. I can imagine myself into that world, and then I can also feel myself falling back, and I'm thinking also of my practice as a psychologist, falling back into seeing a person, even if I see them as a system, rather than just some set identity. Even if I see them as a system, I see them as having, kind of carrying with them an inside and an outside. And that the inside includes more than just them. It includes their interactions in the world, but somehow it is their unique biography that is somehow set and elaborated. And if they have a feeling, even in focusing, we would say it's in you. And I'm thinking that even that word in creates this old model of inside and outside and the subjectivity and the objectivity that you're describing.
Yes, I think that's really an important, point that you raise, because I think this interactional model, it wouldn't undo the difference between inside and outside.
Okay.
It just undoes the implications.
Okay.
It undoes the implications that this is a subjective inside, which, many philosophical debates are, we can never know what is in your inside. It's not knowable, and that is why it's also not interesting knowledge. Knowledge is always something shared. And there's so much there were so many debates about this, and do you have access to your own inside? And that's just like a little subjective island. Yeah. So I think, Gendlin, there is a distinct difference between inside and outside, but what it means, may be differently understood. And there, I think, but that could be a separate conversation. It's really, really interesting how Gendlin conceives of this inside on the basis of his process model, especially then, what language does, how language elaborates our feeling, thinking, experiential being in ways that, how Gendlin conceives the inside-outside cut on the basis of understanding language. But I think this could be a separate conversation.
Okay, but let me say back to you, I found this is a real point for me, because I feel tempted to say, and this is where I think you'll say there's a problem with this. I feel tempted to say that there isn't an inside, that there is a, as you said earlier, a manifestation. I could maybe say a location, that each individual is a location in space in some way. And because of that, there is a uniqueness, and that we do carry our own elaborations of experiencing. It's not like we're a fresh blank slate every moment. That's not true. But that if we are fundamentally interaction, that the so-called inner space is this space of responding to the world. And there isn't a line between that space and the world. Does that much make sense?
That makes sense. That makes sense. Maybe just on a very, concrete level.
Mm-hmm.
We do need to have words to speak about, this kind of difference that, we experience a situation
Mm-hmm.
and we can be silent.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how you experience the situation.
Yeah.
I need to ask you,
Mm-hmm.
I need to ask you,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to attend to your specific experience. I cannot see it from the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just, it's not as if we were transparent beings, with all our entanglement and, just kind of as if there is a kind of difference,
Yeah.
That's why we need to talk to understand each other. That's why we need to express ourselves. And maybe inside and outside is not a happy distinction, but in some ways functions quite well because this is a kind of outside we can see.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some kind of realm we need, which is so specifically there contributing to our joint reality. The next word that you will say comes from this and is part of, how what kind of situation we build. But of course, it is not the same as this visible space that I see in this form that I see. It's something else. And that there's a distinction there, and that this insight can be is so rich, or what we call insight is so rich, and that it's not just, given or it's not just, there, but that it needs attention and cultivation, all of that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. The one more thing I want to say is, so right now you and I are in this conversational situation, and you have it in a particular way, I have it in a particular way. If you attend to the way that you have it, all of the implicit aspects of this conversation for you, including your state of health at the moment and everything, is constantly being elaborated moment by moment in our conversation. But it's not being elaborated from a fresh starting place. It's being elaborated from your whole life experience up until now. That is totally unique from me. I'm being elaborated from a whole different story of life. And so the implications for me are very unique from those that you're experiencing.
Yes.
To say in,
Mm-hmm.
I think, creates a problem. I think we have to get rid of the word of inside, outside. Otherwise, we import the old assumptions. And the reason that I worry about that so much is because in psychotherapy, in the existential world at least, there are some people that constantly criticize focusing as some kind of a monad
Mm-hmm.
therapy,
Mm-hmm.
which is a complete misunderstanding of it,
Mm-hmm.
but very easy misunderstanding to make when everyone talks about going in the body, and it brings all of this subjectivity and individuality and separateness along with it.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to what you're saying, how can we talk about the individual and about focusing in a way that doesn't have this spatial metaphor that recreates the old model?
I really would need to think about this question.
Yeah.
It's a major creative question and really a beautiful question. And what I was trying to say before, and where I really start to stutter and stammer, is that this space that we enter in focusing, it has a different, it has a different, I have a feeling as if it had a constant highly, and I don't like the word plasticity, but it has it has such a non-predictable or non-determinable potential,
Yeah.
which like our body does also change very much, but it's kindly relatively stable for a couple of years. We don't change, and of course also we don't change randomly, but there's something about this quality of touching experience, and it's touching this interactional thickness of experiencing, which we cannot see with our eyes, we can feel it. That is so the way we hold it, the way we attend it, the way we touch it, we can constantly model a slightly or totally different situation, or a slightly yet decisive different situation for both of us, for maybe just, for one of us, for something within this cosmos that will carry on differently. And I think this dimension of being human, there is still so little vocabulary and so little awareness of this, what I call it, radical creativity and radical responsiveness and radical responsibility. And I think you share this. I think I read things from you where you really share this, and where we really need good terms for it. And you're right, maybe inside and outside are just too much in this, subject object problem implication. It would be really interesting to think. Yeah,
Definitely. Let me say one more thing. The word that when I'm teaching, in order to try to make this point, or at least that there's some thinking to do here, instead of in the body, I've started to say through the body.
Yeah.
Because that makes it sound a little bit more like there's an open system.
Through the body. That's nice. So don't sense into the body, but sense through the body.
Yeah, exactly. And that the felt sense isn't something that comes inside, it's something that comes through the body.
Beautiful. That touches me.
Yeah. It has something more open.
That's very, very nice. It's such a little difference, but it really makes a difference. Yeah.
And the other thing I want to say is just this accusation of subjectivity in the focusing practice. The focusing practice actually requires less subjectivity, because if you turn your attention inside into this whole radical possibility you were just describing, it does require setting aside the stereotype you have of yourself.
Exactly. And the story and the narrative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, attachment to those emotions that really fuel you and give you some sense of identity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's right. With the monads, we should look at Leibniz again, how he understood monads, because really the monad, I think in the sense of Leibniz, that's the philosopher who brought this term, they are an image of the whole universe. So in some ways, they are an image. Everything consists of these monads, and they all contain the whole universe. So, even if they think they say something wrongly, maybe they don't say something so wrong.
Yeah.
And this brings me back to another metaphor I come across more and more about Indra's pearl. Indra's pearls. Have you heard about that? That's
No.
a Buddhistic metaphor. And Indra's pearls, I think, is the necklace of a goddess, where each pearl reflects all other pearls, and reflects it's, and by reflecting the pearls, it again reflects the reflections, and so on. So I really think in these highly complex terms of any such practice that that cultivates this element we call consciousness. It is and there's so many old intuitions in wisdom traditions that that this element is not separated. It just seems separated. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
So let's leave it there.
Okay.
And I think this is a nice little snippet
Yes.
to give people a sense of what we're grappling with, and then we'll pick it up.
Because there's really one touches something so big there that I just don't know how to enter.
Yes, yes, I know. I know that feeling.
Then I just stumble.
Yeah, I know that feeling of just being struck dumb. And what I normally say when I'm teaching and I have that experience is I just want to say, I'm noticing, I want to say everything at once.
Exactly. That's so well said. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for
Great.
meeting.
Yes, thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye.